Welcome to A Moment of Xen. Time to sit back and relax as model, actress, mentor, and supermom Xen Sams takes you on a sexy and wild ride, covering the latest in film, fashion, pop culture, cryptocurrency, fintech, cannabis, and entertainment from the millennial mom's perspective. Here's your host, Xen Sams.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Xen Sams. Welcome to episode 237. Oof, we are celebrating almost 6 years on the air. Here's to another exciting episode. It's always such a pleasure to spend my time with you on the airwaves. Thank you so much for tuning in every Saturday night and engaging with me on social media thereafter. Guys, that truly makes it all worthwhile. I do engage with each one of your comments. Please continue to follow me at Xen Sams. That's Xen with an X, not a Z. XENSAMS across all social handles. And all episodes of A Moment of Xen are available directly on our YouTube channel, Xen Sams. You can check that out Sundays at 2 p.m. via digital streaming. That's Eastern Time. And you can also check us out on your home TV platform at mox.yourhometv.com. Welcome back to A Moment of Xen. Alongside our experts on the microphone, we cover film, fashion, pop culture, cryptocurrency, fintech, and health, and everything in between from the millennial mom's perspective. Today, we have an incredible lineup of conversations that fuel the body, the mind, and of course, the heart. In our Going Deep segment, brought to you by CO2 Lift in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, today we're diving into how some of the top leaders in aesthetics and medical tech are advancing women's health, our confidence and recovery, especially after something as physically and emotionally brutal as breast cancer. And on the panel today, we have Lana Kerr, founder and CEO of CO2 Lift, Bradford Conlan, co-founder and CEO of Bimini Health Tech, a pioneer in regenerative medicine and breast reconstruction, and Juan José Chacón-Quirós, founder of Establishment Labs, the company behind Motiva Implants, also recently FDA approved. Today, they're helping women not just reclaim their bodies, but reclaim their lives. In the Hydration with Heart segment brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut, we're redefining beauty and belonging with cerebral palsy advocate Xian Horn. She's an advocate, a speaker, an educator, founder of Give Beauty Wings, who turned adversity into access. You definitely want to tune in for that inspiring interview. In the Better, Brighter You segment brought to you by Suspera, joining us is Dr. Elaine Kung, a board-certified dermatologist, founder and future of Bright Dermatology in Lower Manhattan in New York, and a clinical assistant professor of dermatology at Weill Cornell Medical College. Today, we're breaking the stigma of skin discoloration. We're chatting about how science is changing the melasma and hyperpigmentation conversation. In our Expert on the Microphone series, in today's Brain Blueprint segment, we take you from hopeless to hopeful. We are breaking barriers in brain health with Dr. Robert Melillo, a world-renowned expert in brain health, especially childhood and adult neurological disorders, and Cindy Bloxham, a remarkable mother who spent the last 7.5 years rehabilitating her daughter, Emma, who was born with a severe brain disorder. In the Society Brands Express segment, today we chat about the hidden dangers of microwaving food in plastic containers. Stay tuned. We'll be right back in the Hydration with Heart segment brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut with the amazing cerebral palsy advocate, Xian Horn. You're listening to A Moment of Xen. I'm your host, Xen Sams. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Xen is brought to you by Tortora Promotions, specializing in white glove digital marketing, social media management, professional videography, and PR services. Based in New York City and partnering with hundreds of businesses nationwide, they deliver proven strategies that bring more customers through the door. If your old marketing methods aren't keeping up, Tortora Promotions can step in to help you stay ahead. Grow your brand and drive real results. Reach out today and follow them on Instagram at Tortora Promotions. Your business deserves it.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Xen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Xen Sams. Welcome back to the Hydration with Heart segment brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut, where we sip, reflect, and shine light on the stories that hydrate the human spirit. Today, we're joined by an extraordinary woman who is transforming how the world defines both beauty and belonging. Xian Horn is a joyful, half-Asian woman living with cerebral palsy, but that's not her story. Her story is how she used that diagnosis as a lens for compassion, creativity, and change. She's an advocate, a speaker, an educator, and founder of Give Beauty Wings, which is an organization that empowers young women and marginalized communities to embrace self-esteem and purpose. She's advised Microsoft, AT&T, the Whitney Museum, Parsons Open Style Lab, and even the United Nations, guiding global leaders towards more inclusive, accessible design. As we honor disability awareness and celebrate the unstoppable human spirit, Xian reminds us that resilience isn't just about overcoming limitations, it's about redefining them and turning adversity into access. This conversation on living joyfully with cerebral palsy is going to be about the power of inclusion and how community, compassion, and courage are reimagining what beauty and accessibility truly mean. We're going to dive in right now with advocate, speaker, educator, and founder of Give Beauty Wings, Xian Horn. Welcome to the show, superstar.
Thank you so much. What an intro. I'm so honored to be with you. And like I told you, it's just finding someone with an X in her name. Like we have to, obviously, we are family already.
That's right. Xian and Xen. Let's take it on. So let's talk about your diagnosis and the defiance, because that's what really captured my attention. So according to the CDC, nearly 1 in 4 adults in the US live with some form of disability, but representation, especially in leadership, remains deeply lacking. And you've said that living with cerebral palsy has been both your greatest challenge and your greatest teacher. So can you teach us and take us back to that moment of diagnosis or realization and share what that meant for your family, your identity, and ultimately your mission?
Yeah, if I can take you back a little bit, actually, I would not say that cerebral palsy is my greatest challenge. I was not, and this is part of my story, I was not told that I could not. I had parents who were artists who told me anything was possible, and I believed them. And so for me, I always say my life is better because I have a disability. Not easier, but better. And I think, yeah, so if I were to say that, it is the greatest blessing of my life because, first of all, I traverse the world with 2 shiny ski poles. So people tend to notice you and it starts conversations. And I think the greatest honor of my life is when someone comes to me and says, I have a disability and this is what it is for me, or my daughter has, and people will share their stories, or they're going through a divorce, or whatever it is. They feel more comfortable, I think, sometimes telling me this than some people in their own families. And I was diagnosed at a year old, so I don't remember it. But I think when I was considering that moment in my life, it was actually at age 9, walking through the lobby that had, where I grew up. And there was a floor to ceiling length mirror, and I'm 9 years old. And it's the first time I looked at myself and I saw my left knee go in. I really believed that I was just like everyone else. I just walked with ski poles too. And so when I saw that, I do look different. I was so shocked that I didn't know this. But I think that's really down to the bubble that my parents created for me as an only child. I really, and again, as artists who we're all a little strange in my family in a good way. And I think that really helped to,
well, that's so powerful what you just said. The way you reframed what most people see as limitation into a source of wisdom is truly inspiring. It's what real empowerment looks like. And your parents, I don't believe they shielded you. I think they empowered you by allowing you to not look at your diagnosis as a limitation, which brings me into my next question, redefining beauty and representation. So as someone who partners with brands and institutions to build inclusive design, from Wunderman Thompson to the Cooper Hewitt and the Whitney, you're challenging beauty standards and cultural perceptions. So studies show that only 2% of models in mainstream campaigns represent visible disabilities, and that number hasn't changed much in any decade. So when you see beauty campaigns or museums that still exclude people with disabilities, how do you begin to shift that conversation toward real inclusion and representation?
In about 2018, I became a Forbes contributor. I wrote a piece about how fashion can be a barrier to employment. If you can only wear stretch pants and Skechers, you may not feel at your best in a job interview or in a professional setting, depending on what the job is. If you're in tech, maybe you can stretch it a little bit. But I wrote this piece, and I went to the community to get quotes from everybody, what they struggled with, whether it was shoes or blazers, what they couldn't get that they needed really for, to fly in a professional realm. And when someone from Allure read that, she came to me and said, is there anything about the beauty industry that you want to share? And about 10 years before that, I actually pitched the Dove campaign, asking them to include people with disabilities in their advertising. I made a 2-minute video in my mother's living room. It was 1 minute and 23 seconds. They passed on it twice, but the video went semi-viral. Even I didn't realize how big and how vast the disability community was at that point. And so what happened, though, in writing this piece is I realized that not much had changed in 10 years. This was 2021. And I'm happy to report that in the 4 years since that piece has been written, it's like the beauty industry has just exploded with an awareness of disability now. And we have places like Rare Beauty, Selena Gomez's company, thinking about people with dexterity issues, Tilt Beauty, we have Guide Beauty, we have so many more brands in the last 4 years. And so the good news is that once the memo was received, it's just been an explosion and a very quick catch up. I just saw today Aaron Phillip, who actually went to my alma mater, lab school, is on the cover of Vogue right now.
There you go. It comes full circle. Now, the power of community and belonging is extremely important in every narrative, and you've built community not just through advocacy, but through shared joy, from your work with the Real Abilities Film Festival to advising Brooklyn Botanic Gardens and PBS Independent Lens. I mean, you're creating spaces where everyone can belong. And I love that. So why is community such a vital piece of the inclusion puzzle? And how can each of us in our own lives and workplaces cultivate that sense of belonging?
Well, that's a great question. I just want to back up to what you said about action for a second. Give Beauty Wings, the name of it is because it's all about putting our beauty and our gifts to action. So I loved what you just said. But also, to answer your question directly, as an only child living in my own bubble, I remember when I would hear the term disability community, I thought, what community? Because I was in a survival mode, was just trying to get through school, make friends, connect with people. And the wonderful thing is, since I've become an advocate and with internet, you can find community almost everywhere, no matter how rare your disability is. There's usually a group somewhere, and it's been so powerful to see people find each other. And I mean, obviously we can do nothing alone, really. And so when I became an advocate, it's like a whole world opened up. And I became more and more proud to be disabled because I just saw so many powerful disabled people doing so much. It's not just me. There's so many people that I could name that are doing this. And there is such solidarity in that. There's such power in that. And it's so much better when we can do things together. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question.
It so does, and it's beautiful because you make it sound simple, but it's really revolutionary, because belonging starts with intention and humility, both of which you are master at. Now let's chat about emotional sustainability in advocacy. Advocacy work can be both soul-filling and emotionally draining, right? You've spent years educating and consulting with global leaders, but you also radiate light, joy, and humor in everything you do. So what anchors you when the road gets tough? What anchors you when the work gets hard? How do you refill your cup? I mean, physically, emotionally, or spiritually, when you give so much of yourself to others?
Well, I have to say that my faith, which I always believed in a God, but I thought you talk to God when you die and it's some kind of big wrap up of your life. And what I find is that God is always talking to us. And, and a lot of my, journey has been really just following those breadcrumbs that are placed in front of me. I don't know exactly where it's going, but I know it's going somewhere wonderful. And so, when things get tough, knowing that I'm not just doing this for myself, I'm doing this because there are people who are literally out there dying because they don't feel enough, because I know that there are people that need to hear the message that they're so beautiful or that they're welcome, or, you know what I'm saying? That, the greater purpose, the greater service of my life is the thing that keeps me going. And, if I don't do it, who will, right?
This segues into the world we're living in, because we're living in a world where Gen Z is more vocal than ever about inclusivity and identity and purpose. You said that. We came full circle in the last decade, right? But many still struggle to find their place. So what advice would you give to young people who may feel different or misunderstood, those who are still learning to see their difference as their superpower? Well, what advice do you have to them?
I think my advice is allow yourself to grow and make mistakes. I think a lot of times, because we live in our own body, we're aware of the ways in which we're imperfect, to a greater degree. And it's almost like staring in the mirror too long. You start to see, the details, and we can overanalyze and put so much pressure on ourselves. And I think, let yourself be inspired by the people that are doing great things. I'm saying that because when I was younger, I was a fearless child, but as a teenager, going to college, for example, at 18, I went to a place where there were some 18-year-olds with 2 nonprofits already. And I thought, well, I can never be that or do that. And I was right. I'm not supposed to be Zen. I'm not supposed to be Megan. I'm supposed to be me. And, even having the incredible parents that I have, my mom worked with models. My dad was a model. They're so gorgeous and charming. And I thought, oh my gosh, they know who they are. They're so confident. They never went through a period where they didn't have friends or, and so I thought, oh my gosh, like how could I possibly, I came out of them, and how could I possibly live up to that? And what I've learned is that we all have our own beauty. We all have our own purpose. So you might be looking at someone else saying, oh, they've got it all together. Nobody has it fully all together, A. But also let that be something that motivates you to improve rather than something that makes you shrink. Because you have something, everybody has something specific to them that only they can contribute in the world. And if you don't keep going and figure out what that is, it's a disservice to the world.
You are, other than amazing, you are uniquely you. I love hearing you speak, and I love how in awe of your parents you are. But I will say to you that they are more in awe of you than they are of themselves and anything else, because you are the superpower. You are the superpower. And what you just said, I love it. Difference. Your difference, my difference, everybody's difference, that what makes us different, that's our superpower. And you've turned your own story into a living testament to that truth. So on this conversation on living joyfully with cerebral palsy, I would like to hear from you. What does living joyfully truly mean?
I think for me, joy is an extension of gratitude, and finding people and things that give you joy, and empower that joy every day. Joy doesn't mean that everything is perfect, and joy doesn't mean that there is no darkness. For me, I remember a long time ago, I coined a term called positivity activism. And what I meant by that is that life is hard, it is dark, but we have to choose to find the light where possible and be the light where possible. And I think for me, real positivity, real joy is acknowledging how difficult life can be while also celebrating how beautiful it is.
I want to be mindful of the time. This is the last question. So as we sip our Once Upon a Coconut today, Uh, a, a brand built on purity, vitality, and purpose. I have to ask, if hydration were a metaphor for life, what fills you up the most these days? What keeps your heart hydrated?
Well, like I said, I have a lot of love in my life, but I also think my faith is, because things can get very dark. And what I've learned is that we can be the light when we don't see it. And I think but what helps me to know that I'm not alone, even if I am, let's say I don't, in the pandemic, we were isolated, in those moments that were so dark. It was really my faith that kept me spiritually hydrated and kept me going. And it was very healing time in a way to be forced to be with yourself, because I did a lot of reflection and introspection. So for me, I think that's probably the primary driver. And of course, all the wonderful people. I'm still friends with my first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade best friends.
Of course you are. Of course you are. It's
You
community.
know,
It's
right?
community. Oh, well, we are officially out of time, but that was so poetic. I smiled throughout your whole answer. Listening to you is empowering. And that's exactly the kind of answer that refuels all of us. So thank you. Thank you so much for coming today. Xian, thank you for reminding us that beauty is so much more than what we see. It's what we share. Your courage and compassion are ripples that keep expanding outward. And I'm so honored to have interviewed you.
Oh, thank you. I feel the same. And I teared up when you were speaking. Thank you for, encouraging me. But also I wanted to say to the lovely audience, be a spectacle. Be a spectacle, be, perfectly imperfect, be who you are. Like, I honestly the thing that I learned most from my parents is that authenticity is better than perfection.
For those listening, you can learn more about Xian's incredible work at xianhorn.com and givebeautywings.org. And you can follow her journey directly on the gram at Xian for Beauty 83. That's spelled XIAN for Beauty 83. A huge thank you to our sponsor, Once Upon a Coconut, for fueling this amazing conversation, because when we hydrate the body, we awaken the heart. Until next time, stay hydrated, stay kind, and stay tuned to A Moment of Zen. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Once Upon a Coconut.
Discover the refreshing taste of 100% pure coconut water that actually tastes great. Naturally sweet with no artificial flavors or added sugar. It's packed with electrolytes to keep you hydrated throughout your day. And with 10% of profits going to charity, every sip makes a difference. Pure taste, pure goodness. Experience nature's Gatorade. Visit Once Upon a Coconut or naturesgatorade.com.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to the Going Deep segment, brought to you by CO2 Lift. In honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, today we're diving into how some of the top leaders in aesthetic and medical tech are advancing women's health, confidence, and recovery, especially after something as physically and emotionally brutal as breast cancer. Now, first joining us is Lana Kerr. She's the founder and CEO of CO2 Lift, a clinical innovator, a multi-business owner, author, and public speaker with over 2 decades of experience. Lana has continued to push boundaries across the field, bringing us her flagship line, CO2 Lift by Lumisk Skincare, which is the first clinically proven gel carboxy therapy. Also joining us is Brad Conlan, co-founder and CEO of Bimini Health Tech, a pioneer in regenerative medicine and breast reconstruction with brands like PureGraft, Essence, and Serene that support women's health worldwide. And lastly, we welcome Juan José Chacón-Quirós, founder of Establishment Labs, the company behind Motiva Implants, a trusted name now FDA approved in the United States, also known for its focus on natural feel, safety, and innovation. Together, they're helping women not just reclaim their bodies, but reclaim their lives. Welcome to the show, superstars.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zen. Thank you.
So excited to dive into this. Lana, I'm going to start with you. So from implants to regenerative tech to topical therapies, each of your companies really touches a different piece of the patient's journey. So let's break this down a bit. You're a global authority when it comes to non-invasive skin and intimate care, and your CO2 Lift and CO2 Lift V treatments have helped countless women navigate breast cancer recovery and survivorship. And with studies showing that 1 in 8 women will develop breast cancer in their lifetime, innovations like yours are truly priceless. So, Lana, what results have you seen CO2 Lift provide for breast cancer fighters and survivors? And how did your company first begin connecting with this community?
Thank you, Zen. We've seen CO2 Lift help restore skin health, intimate wellness for survivors. Many deal with dryness, thinning, loss of elasticity from chemotherapy, radiation, or just hormone blocking treatments. We've seen CO2 Lift improve hydration, circulation, and healing, which really bring comfort back to their skin, confidence back into their lives. We began connecting with this community organically through physicians who were using CO2 Lift with their breast cancer patients and saw remarkable results. From their survivors themselves began sharing their stories, and we've continued listening and learning directly from them to support their unique needs.
It's remarkable, Lana, and I've been following this journey alongside you for several years now, and it's powerful to hear how science and compassion intersect right here. Now, Brad, I'm going to shift to you. So Bimini Health Tech is a global leader in innovative medical devices for breast reconstruction and regenerative medicine. Whether it's pure graft, fat grafting, Essence, acellular, dermal matrix, or serene breast implants, these are all solutions designed to really support women's health, especially post-mastectomy. So I'd love to know, can you tell me more about Bimini Tech's mission surrounding women's health? And how do you see your work intersecting with the experience of breast cancer survivors specifically?
Yeah, so Bimini's origin story is built on a foundation of regenerative medicine, like you mentioned earlier. And so all the founders are very passionate about it. And we are really obsessed with the body's ability to heal itself. And so one of our core technologies is called Pure Graft. And it allows you to move fat from where you don't want it and put it where you do, which is a fairly revolutionary mindset and procedure for the patient. Because in a lot of cases, especially with breast reconstruction, post-radiotherapy, post-removal of cancer, there is a defect or a scarring that occurs in the breast. And our Pure Graft technology is a great option to move fat from where you don't want it and put it where you do again, or use it in combination with the breast implant. So it's just naturally a great place for us to exist.
And studies, in fact, the studies show that up to 60% of women who undergo mastectomy choose reconstruction as part of their recovery journey. And your technology really bridges that medical and emotional gap, helping women rebuild both tissue and trust in their own bodies. I mean, you've gone to great lengths, so thank you for that. Juan, JJ,
Yes.
Let's bring you into the conversation. So your company, Establishment Labs, is behind Motiva Implants, which have quickly become a favorite for patients seeking a more natural look and feel, especially after your FDA approval last year. Now, every year, more than 246,000 women undergo mastectomy as part of breast cancer treatment or prevention, and with many choosing implant-based reconstruction afterward. Motiva has reshaped that conversation without a doubt, with a focus on safety, biocompatibility, and comfort. So how does that vision connect with breast cancer survivors in particular? And going one step further, what role have you seen implants play in not just reconstruction, but in restoring confidence?
Yeah, I think our focus has always been around, positively impacting the journey of breast reconstruction. So number one, our Flora tissue expander, that tissue expander is a complete game changer because it allows for MRIs during the expansion process of the breast reconstruction. And that is very important because the one thing in their mind for these cancer survivors is, remission. Am I going to get, my breast cancer again? So if during that process you can have an MRI, should the physician think it's necessary, then you can do it, you can have it. So that gives you a lot of peace of mind. And eventually, many of these women are undergoing radiation therapy, and this tissue expander allows for a better delivery of this radiation therapy, so that you don't touch the heart or the lung. And that is, again, very important because you don't want to damage those organs in the process of breast reconstruction. And then after that, of course, there's a possibility of having an implant. And these implants, in so many different countries have been able to be a fundamental part of bringing these women back to who they were, and in some cases even better. So that, of course, is going to help them restore that confidence. But beyond that, what I think, it's amazing to see is that, how brave these women are, so that if after breast cancer, you're able to go through the entire breast reconstruction, they really become a fundamental voice for so many people in their communities. And I think that's, for us, one of the things that we feel most proud of is that these women, can carry through that load and eventually be such a positive influence in their families and communities.
Exactly, JJ. That confidence piece that you just mentioned is everything. And after such an invasive and identity altering experience, feeling comfortable in your skin again is life changing. I'm going to pivot back to you, Lana. So let's talk about where all of your companies intersect. There's a documentary you're all involved in coming out next year called Reclaiming Confidence. It's highlighting a patient's journey through diagnosis, mastectomy, and reconstruction. So Lana, what brought Motiva, Bimini Tech, and CO2 Lift together for this project? And more importantly, why now?
Well, then it really began with a conversation with one of our favorite plastic surgeons, Dr. Ziedler. We were discussing our initiative to better serve and support that breast cancer community. And she shared with us a story of a patient who came to her for mommy makeover. As part of her process, Dr. Ziedler sends patients for a mammogram first. And in this case, that patient discovered she had breast cancer. And the story really moved us. I mean, we realized there was an opportunity to do more, not just as individual companies, but together. And we wanted to join forces. We're really the best partners in this space. So with JJ's company, Motiva, and Brad with Bimini Tech, we thought this would be perfect to really shine a light on this journey, raise awareness, and provide real hope and solutions. And so for us, the time is now, because really these women, they can't wait.
That's such a beautiful collaboration for the three of you. Congratulations. It really feels like the perfect time with more than 4 million breast cancer survivors living in the US today. Storytelling like this helps bridge the science with the soul. It gives real faces to the innovation happening behind the scenes. So this is so important. Brad, I'm going to pivot back to you. This film also highlights collaboration, industry leaders uniting around a shared cause. What made you say yes to being involved in this film? And what message do you hope this collaboration sends to both patients and to the broader medical community?
Yeah, it's really a unique opportunity, isn't it? If you just take a step back and think about it, there's really three groups involved. First and foremost, there's the patient and their families. Second's the medical community, the physicians and their staff. And then third are the companies and the technology providers, which is who we are today. And the first two groups do a great job of collaborating, sharing good news, and helping each other, trying to improve their techniques. Where companies, our natural tendency is to be proprietary, not secretive, but also just kind of protect our moat and have our stakeholders. So for me, this is really unique because you have three companies that are actually complementary and coming together, which is rare, and providing the best technologies all at the same time. So for me, it really is a win-win-win, three wins. So it was the uniqueness of it. So I think as a message to industry, I looked at JJ and Lana and others to be like, do this in other modalities. There's companies that are complementary to each other that, frankly, it's a really easy decision to do this if you just consider the patient and put the patient first. So our view is work together and provide some hope for these patients.
I love that perspective, Brad. I mean, so often innovation in medicine happens in silos. So what this film represents and what you've created together is a unified ecosystem for women's recovery. It's hope in motion, powered by expertise and empathy, which makes it so much more beautiful. JJ, I think this documentary is a brilliant way to connect with both the women in need and the medical community. And now, from your perspective, why do you think storytelling, especially through documentary film, is such a powerful way to raise awareness and inspire change? And how do you hope the film helps women see the options available to them?
Yeah, look, I come from a family of plastic surgeons. My mother is a nurse obstetrician and a champion of women's health. And she always taught me, let women tell their own stories. And I think as you do storytelling, that is such a powerful way to get other women to listen. If Brad or Lana or me, we say, all these things, it's completely different than if a breast cancer survivor is telling that story. So we can, of course, positively impact that journey, but at the end, it's their own story. And it's the one that is really going to make other women feel like, you know what, if I ever get breast cancer, I hope I don't, that seems like something that I can do to restore who I was. And, if you think about like the state of breast reconstruction in the United States, it's actually very positive when you compare it to the rest of the world. We're currently engaged in this movement called the Africa Recon Network to bring breast reconstruction to Africa. In most of Africa, there is no breast reconstruction. But the worst part is that there are no stories. So, I hope this documentary eventually, can be used to, tell women in countries like Burkina Faso or Mali or, Congo, what breast cancer survivals can do, should they have that. So our work should be to not only give great technology to great physicians like Dr. Zeidler, but also to help women in their storytelling so we can, tell the women that don't know what to do, what is it that they can do. So that should be our job. That's our mission.
Now, this question is for all of you. So before we wrap up, we know breast cancer impacts more than just physical health. It affects identity, confidence, and emotional well-being. So from your perspectives as industry leaders, if you could give one message directly to women navigating breast cancer or survivorship right now who may feel emotionally drained or hopeless, what would it be? Lana, you can go first.
Well, to every survivor and fighter, you're stronger than you realize. This journey may feel overwhelming, but it's not the end of the story. There are resources, there are treatments, like what we're talking about here with Motiva, with Bimini, that people are ready to walk with you through. And so keep going, because the best days are still ahead.
Brad, what's your advice? That was beautiful, Lana.
I think it's hope. I think they should know that some of the best minds in the industry are working tirelessly every day on new technologies, improving patient outcomes, and just working towards just better quality of life, because we think every day about life after breast reconstruction, and that's our goal. So there's a whole team of people behind you thinking about you all the time.
Beautifully said. And JJ, what's your advice?
Don't feel alone. You have, as they have said before, such an extraordinary group of, medical practitioners, technologists that are trying to make this better for you. And at the end, you have to get back to your families and your communities. So there's a big reason to do this.
Beautifully said by all of you across the board. And every woman listening today deserves to know that science, technology, and compassion are really working hand in hand to lift her up. I mean, from regenerative therapies to aesthetic empowerment, this conversation proves healing is possible on every level, body, mind, and spirit. And I thank all of you for coming here today and being part of my expert panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For everyone listening, reclaiming confidence is more than a film, it's a movement. A reminder that with innovation and collaboration, survivorship can mean not just living, but truly reclaiming life. To learn more, you can head directly to co2lift.com. Check them out on the gram at CO2Lift, and you can check out Lana at the Lana Kerr, that's R. Bimini Health Tech, you can head directly to their website at biminihealthtech.com and check them out on the gram at Bimini Health Tech. And Motiva Implants, you can head directly to motivausa.com and on the gram at Motiva_USA. That was our Going Deep segment brought to you by CO2 Lift. I'm your host, Zen Sams. We'll be right back after this.
New York, are you ready to carboxify the city? Meet CO2 Lift, the breakthrough topical carboxy therapy trusted worldwide by surgeons, estheticians, and skin enthusiasts alike. This isn't just another mask. It's an oxygenating treatment that hydrates deeply, stimulates collagen, and helps skin recover and glow like never before. And now, for the very first time, we're bringing it straight to you. The CO2 Lift pop-up store is opening later this month in New York City. Step inside, discover the science, and see why professionals everywhere rely on CO2 Lift to elevate skin health. You'll get education, demos, and a chance to experience the treatment that's creating a whole new category in skincare. So whether you're in the industry or just love taking your glow seriously, this is your invitation. Join us at the CO2 Lift pop-up store and help us carboxify the city together. The countdown to glow starts now. Follow CO2 Lift on Instagram at CO2 Lift to learn more.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Today in the Better, Brighter You segment brought to you by Cespera, we're taking on a powerful conversation that too often goes unspoken. Breaking the stigma of skin discoloration, how science is changing the melasma conversation. It's an important one to have. Hyperpigmentation, and particularly melasma, affects millions worldwide, nearly 40% of women over age 30, yet it's often dismissed as just cosmetic. In reality, the emotional toll can be as profound as the physical one, with studies linking visible pigmentation disorders to lower quality of life scores comparable to chronic disease. That's why this topic is so important. We'll be unpacking the emotional impact of pigmentation, the myths and misconceptions that hold patients back, and the innovative new treatments, including Cespera, powered by cysteamine, that are reshaping how we think about brighter, healthier skin. And who better to guide us through than Dr. Elaine Kung, a board-certified dermatologist, founder of Future Bright Dermatology in Lower Manhattan, and clinical assistant professor of dermatology at Weill Cornell Medical College. She's a Yale-trained physician whose research in tissue engineering has earned national recognition. Dr. Kung is known not only for her clinical expertise, but also for her role as a thought leader featured in outlets like NBC News, Allure, and BuzzFeed. Dr. Kung, welcome to the show, superstar. It's an honor to have you here.
Hello, nice to see you. Thank you for inviting me.
So excited. So let's chat with melasma and the emotional impact. It isn't just a skin condition. It's a story patients carry every day. And research shows that people with pigmentation disorders often report emotional distress at levels comparable to that chronic illness, which is what I alluded in the introduction. So why does pigmentation, especially melasma, have such a deep emotional impact on your patients?
This is a topic that I'm very passionate about. I personally deal with hyperpigmentation issues myself since the age of 18, and I spent almost the entirety of my career helping patients with complex hyperpigmentation issues. In particular, melasma is the absolute most distressing of them all. Melasma itself is this dark patches, map-like that's in the center of the face, and then also mustache-like shadow above the upper lip that for some people, even makeup can't hide. And because of that, it is so distressing. Meta-analysis of clinical studies say that upwards of 43% of patients dealing with melasma also have some depressive symptoms. So there's a big emotional impact to the condition compared to having a lot of freckles.
Yeah, that really captures how pigmentation is about far more than appearance, right? It's about identity, confidence, and emotional health. So it's important that we're talking about this right now, which brings me to the causes and triggers. So melasma is often nicknamed the mask of pregnancy, but we know that the causes extend far beyond hormones. So sun exposure, genetics, and even certain medications can all contribute. So in your diverse patient population right here in New York City, what are the most common causes and triggers you encounter?
As you were saying, melasma is not due to one singular factor. It's multifactorial. It's almost the collision, the perfect storm creates melasma. The top 3 triggers that we know of is a genetic disposition. Then it becomes hormonal changes and then environmental factors, UV light and high energy visible light being the most important instigating factors. So, for example, myself, a few years ago, I started taking oral contraceptives because my period was so erratic. And after about 5 or 6 months, I went on a trip to Thailand. I came back home and then started discovering like light patches right on my upper cheeks. And I recognized that as the beginning of melasma. So I had to alter my approach and stop the oral contraceptives, even though I was using it as a treatment for erratic periods. So the oral contraceptives and then just sun exposure in Thailand collided together, and I started developing the symptoms of melasma.
That's an eye opener. I mean, it helps people understand it's not just one cause, but like you said, a constellation of triggers working together, right? So let's forward to the myths and the misunderstandings, right? Online information is just everywhere. These DIY lemon juice masks, miracle creams, and the false hope of overnight cures. But melasma is a chronic condition that requires science-backed care, without a doubt. So what are some of the biggest myths about pigmentation that you wish more people understood?
So some myths about melasma that I want to debunk is, well, number one, that it's only a woman's problem. It's true that 9 out of 10 patients with melasma are women, but men can have it too, right? That's one of the main things, or that it's only due to pregnancy. And that's not true. As I was alluding to, people who are on hormonal contraceptives or hormone replacement therapy in menopause can slowly start developing melasma as well. Now, another myth that is very common, and it's really like far outreaching beyond melasma, is the thought that photoprotection is only when you're going outside, only when you're going on vacation, only when you're going to the beach. That's absolutely not true. Besides ultraviolet light, we now know that high energy visible light that we could get indoors and even in front of our screens, our electronic devices, our computers, can actually cause rosacea and pigmentary issues like melasma, which is why during the COVID lockdown, when people weren't really going out that much, I had patients who had worsening of their rosacea or worsening of their pigmentary issues like melasma because they just didn't put on any photo protection when they were indoors.
So let's chat prevention versus treatment. I mean, we often hear that prevention is the best cure, and sunscreen, like you've been saying, remains the cornerstone of pigmentation management. But once melasma sets in, as you know, Dr. Kang, prevention alone isn't enough. So how do you counsel patients on balancing daily prevention with realistic treatment expectations?
There is no quick fix to melasma, and the treatment journey is more of a marathon, being persistent, being patient, rather than any quick fixes. Prevention is key, but it's also part of treatment. So when we were talking about sunscreen, like a mineral-based sunscreen SPF 50 or higher with iron oxides, that's the most protective of UV and high energy visible light. That, I think, is not only prevention, but it's also treatment as well, because you can't go on to improving pigmentation without that arm. Now, traditionally, the gold standard of at-home therapy for melasma was the Kligman formula. Kligman formula is the combination of hydroquinone, retinoids, and a corticosteroid. However, it was limited to using it for 3 months, 6 months. I'm sure a lot of people who dealt with melasma have heard their doctors tell them 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 2 months on, 2 months off. And because there are problems with using long-term hydroquinone. The problem is called exogenous ochronosis, which is a bluish brown discoloration that sets in with long-term use. And then on top of that, corticosteroids can increase blood vessel development and thinning of the skin, which is not ideal as well. And because of these new innovations for people to be able to use long-term is really now the new cornerstone of treating melasma.
And I guess that's why cysteamine, the star ingredient in Cespera, is such a breakthrough. I mean, it's naturally present in the body and has been clinically proven to significantly improve pigmentation safely. So how has the science of pigmentation treatment evolved in recent years? And why is a hydroquinone-free innovation like Cespera so exciting for you and your patients?
What's interesting about cysteamine is that there are clinical studies that have compared 5% cysteamine to the Kligman formula that I talked about earlier, the combination of hydroquinone, retinoid, and corticosteroid. And cysteamine basically performs as well as the Kligman formula, but has less side effects. However, cysteamine will take longer to work than the old Kligman formula, 6 months or more. So in my clinical practice, I have some patients who are using cysteamine or Cespera for over a year now, and their skin tone has improved dramatically.
Wow.
That it's really evened out. And I think some of our patients with melasma, what they're seeking is that the maps on their faces are not so visible, that it blends with the rest of their skin. And Cespera was able to help my patients achieve that. But it took longer than the traditional Kligman formula. However, it's something that they could use for a long period of time, and that's the difference.
Got it. And that's the transformative. I mean, that's a transformative mindset. The idea that we can achieve real results without the risk of hydroquinone gives patients both safety and hope. So that's incredibly useful. Now, many people silently struggle with pigmentation, feeling discouraged or even ashamed. So for someone listening right now who has been battling melasma or dark spots, what's one piece of encouragement or advice you'd share with them?
So my advice to them is treating pigmentation, again, it's a marathon. It takes time, it takes perseverance. And then what's really important is pair up with a good coach, like a dermatologist who specializes with complex hyperpigmentation to guide you along the way.
Got it. And at the end of the day, when you say it like that message of hope is exactly what listeners need, because like you said, like it's a very emotional thing to look at yourself in the mirror and feel helpless, and that this thing is literally taking over your face. So the brighter, healthier skin is possible, and they don't have to go through it alone with amazing products like Cespera. I love how we came full circle on this interview. It was so informative and transparent. Thank you so much for coming on our Expert on the Microphone series.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
That was the Better, Brighter You segment, brought to you by Cespera, a revolutionary hydroquinone-free solution powered by cysteamine, clinically proven to improve stubborn pigmentation safely and effectively. And to learn more, you can visit Cespera.com or follow them on the gram at Cespera. And don't forget, you can find Dr. Kung on the gram at Future Bright Skin or at her Manhattan practice, Future Bright Dermatology. You can head directly to her website at futurebrightdermatology.com. And remember, brighter skin isn't just about looking good. It's about confidence, resilience, and living as your best life itself, your very best self. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. Do follow them at Future Bright Skin directly on the gram. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Xen is brought to you by Cispera. If skin discoloration is making it hard to find your Zen, Cispera can help. Stubborn pigmentation, dark spots, and uneven skin tone concerns go beyond the surface, affecting both confidence and self-expression. In a sea of skincare choices, Cispera stands apart. Backed by science and trusted by dermatologists worldwide, Cispera is powered by the advanced cysteamine isobonic amide complex, delivering clinically proven results and effectively targeting mild to persistent discoloration while restoring the skin's natural glow. Unlike harsh treatments, Cispera is formulated for all skin types, including sensitive areas, ensuring visible improvements without irritation. Whether pigmentation is a new concern or a long-standing struggle, Cispera works in harmony with the skin to bring balance, clarity, and renewed confidence. Cispera is science-driven skincare for confidence that shines. Find your skin zen and restore your glow with Cispera today by heading to Cispera.com.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. In the Clean Collective Express segment brought to you by Society Brands, we are chatting the pitfalls of microwaving your food in plastic containers. The FDA has approved certain plastics as microwave safe, but that only means the container won't melt, not that it won't leach chemicals. Research published in Environmental Health Perspectives found that over 95% of tested plastics, including many labeled as BPA-free, still released estrogenic chemicals when heated. These compounds have been linked to infertility, developmental disorders, and even cancer. Even single-use plastics like takeout containers or water bottles can release microplastics and chemical residues when reheated. The heat causes molecular breakdown. Tiny invisible fragments end up in your meal and ultimately your body. So here's your health swap. Transfer leftovers to glass or ceramic before reheating. A small change that keeps toxins off your plate and peace of mind on it. Protect your health one meal at a time. You're listening to A Moment of Zen. I'm your host, Zen Sams. That was the Clean Collective Express segment brought to you by Society Brands.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Cleanomic. Cleanomic zip bags are certified compostable. They break down into nutrient-rich fertilizer that nourishes the earth. They're BPA-free, so no harmful chemicals leak into your food. Available in snack, sandwich, quart, and gallon sizes. They ship straight to your door. No more store runs. Plus, get free trash bags for life with the subscription. Protect your food and health from hidden microplastic particles by heading to cleanomic.com today.
Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to the Brain Blueprint segment brought to you by the Melillo Centers and Dr. Robert Melillo. And we're chatting from hopeless to hopeful, breaking barriers in brain health. We're going to explore how one mother refused to accept a dire prognosis, discovered Dr. Robert Melillo's groundbreaking brain balance work, and helped her daughter Emma thrive against all odds. To set the stage, nearly 1 in 6 children in the United States have a developmental disability such as ADHD, autism, or a learning disorder. And that's according to the CDC statistics back in 2023. I'm going to say they're even higher right now. Globally, there's more than 17 million people affected by cerebral palsy and neural development disorders. Collectively, that impacts tens of millions of families. And even more striking, according to the National Institutes of Health, an estimated 80% of children with neurological disorders are told their prognosis is limited and that little progress should be expected. Yet, emerging science paints a much different picture. We know the brain is plastic. It can adapt, it can rewire, and it can change. And when we apply targeted stimulation consistently, breakthroughs become possible. Today's guest is Dr. Robert Melillo. He's a world-renowned expert in brain health, especially childhood and adult neurological disorders. He's a clinician, a professor, brain researcher, and best-selling author of Disconnected Kids. Dr. Melillo focuses on ADHD, autism, OCD, tics, anxiety, and other developmental neurological issues. A leading figure in functional neuroscience, he has dedicated his entire career to bridging the gap between brain function, behavior, and physical health. His innovative multimodal approach, the Melillo method, has transformed the lives of thousands of patients of all ages. Now, joining us alongside Dr. Robert Melillo is Cindy Bloxham. She's a remarkable mother who has spent the last 7.5 years rehabilitating her daughter Emma, who was born with a severe brain disorder. And after being told in New Zealand that Emma's case was too severe to improve, Cindy, she just refused to give up hope. Her journey led her to Dr. Robert Melillo and his method. And today, Emma is thriving, a beautiful, joyful, cheeky 9-year-old who proves the brain's blueprint can indeed be rewritten. Welcome to the show, superstars.
Yay. Thanks for having us.
So happy to be here again, of course.
So, Cindy, you were told Emma's condition was too severe for improvement.
Yep.
So what gave you the strength to challenge that prognosis and search for answers outside the traditional system?
I recall being in this pediatrician's office, and all she did was focus on what was wrong with Emma. And I'm like, oh, okay, so what are we going to do to help her? And she couldn't answer that question. And I asked her, I said, could you do me a favor? Could you tell me, when did you get your degree? And she looked at me complexed, and I said, yeah, when did you get your degree? And she said, 20 years ago. And I said, okay, and do you know how long ago those books you based your theses on were written? And she looked at me, she said, how must I know? That's in England, could be 80 to 100 years ago. And I said, exactly. I said, you don't know me, and you don't know my child, and you don't know the God I serve. So you can take your somewhat diagnosis and you can stick it. Because I am going to go and find my child the right help, and one day I'll pop in here and my daughter will walk in here. And she just looked at me and I said, well, thank you. Got up, picked my child, and I walked out. And just like many other mothers and yourself, like you explained earlier, Xian, you research. You go and find the answers. And after trying a couple of therapists in the beginning, I soon found out this is not what my daughter needed. Nobody's actually explaining what's going on with Emma's brain, because that's where the issue is, right? And I remember I bought a vibration tool of someone, and when I bought it, the person included Dr. Melillo's book. And I'll never forget, I had the book for like over 6 weeks, and I didn't get into it yet. And she kept pestering me, have you read the book? Have you read the book? And it was a Sunday evening. I started reading the book. I went to bed at 11, and I couldn't shut off. I was like, I need to get up. And I got up, and I had to finish this book that night. I read it in one go. I found our person. And that led me to New York, all the way from New Zealand. And it's been 4 years working with him and never looking back.
Wow, that's such a powerful example of advocacy, and the research supports it, right?
Yeah.
Because a study, and it's serendipitous. There are no coincidences. You were meant to meet.
Oh, it was written in the stars.
It was
definitely.
written in the stars. And
Yep.
and studies show that children whose parents remain actively involved, and you are Emma's therapist,
Yep.
in seeking alternative or even complementary therapies, have up to a 40% greater chance of functional improvement compared to those who don't. So your instinct to ask what's possible if we try is exactly what opened the door for Emma's transformation, right?
100%.
Dr. Melillo, you are at the center of this conversation. What are you thinking right now,
Well,
hearing
I think,
all this?
you know, when people out there, that they may be listening and saying, wait a second, how come they don't know what's going on? What was really fascinating was, you know, there was no obvious signs of anything with Emma. They did MRIs of her brain, and brain was perfect. The doctor said it was one of the best brains he ever saw. Genetic testing, everything came up negative. Blood tests, everything came up negative. But here was a girl who was profoundly impaired. Like she said, she could only really barely move one side of her body. And, you know, and she was, I mean, literally when I first saw her, could only crawl on the ground, like dragging her legs behind her like they were dead, meaning that this was this little girl. This is the only way she could ambulate. She couldn't sit up. She couldn't speak, and nobody knew why. And this was the whole idea of, you know, when you talk about a functional neurology or functional neuroscience, what does that mean? This is the best example of it, because there's obviously something going on that's profound in the brain, but yet there's no organic illness, there's no injury, there's no genetic mutation, there's nothing really that you can see wrong with the brain, and that makes it really challenging. And that's been my focus, and that's when we look at kids with autism that are severely profoundly impaired, but yet there's nothing wrong with their brain, there's no genetic mutation, and this is the mystery of it. And there's very few people that really understand how the brain works from a functional perspective and can change that. And that's been my mission.
Yeah. So, Cindy, on your 4th trip to see Dr. Melillo, what specific kinds of progress have you witnessed in Emma since those early days?
My very first trip, I got back home and I had a pediatrician appointment, and Emma's head grew 6 centimeters. She had something, what's the term, Dr. Melillo, when a child's head's really small?
Microcephaly.
Yep, she had that. So her brain stopped growing very early on, and there hadn't been change in years. And the fact that her head had grown 6 centimeters at our very first intensive, that's scientific proof in real time her brain was growing. And then fast forward to now, we in our 2nd week of this intensive, she's doing stuff she couldn't do last Monday. Dr. Ty's got her pulling herself up from a seated to standing position, keeping in mind she probably doesn't even feel the bottom of her legs. And yesterday she was showing off to Dr. Rob, like, hey, look at me. She's doing a minute plank. She's doing sit-ups. She always needed assistance with sit-ups, so holding the hands. She's doing it no hands. She's doing Supermans over Bosu ball, throwing a ball. And what we're trying to do is encourage lifting this bit, because the back muscles, because Dr. Melillo says, look at it like this. How do you expect Emma to walk if her brain can't even feel her back muscles, right? So we're stimulating those muscles. She's doing the NeuroSage program, which is the brain stimulation program. And she's got, at the moment, for the first time, we switched from left to right, because her left brain had healed so much in the last 3 years working with Dr. Rob, and her numbers were so bad when we first started. Now it's time to integrate her whole brain. We're doing bridges, and she does it for 150 seconds. Most kids can't even do 40 seconds.
Right.
She's her vestibular. Dr. Melillo took me through her program and her progress and how her chart is moving in the right direction. Some better than others, and then some she's nailing. But collectively, we have progress.
And I think what's really important is the first thing she said. When we look at our research and we say, what is the actual problem? One of the problems is that there's immaturity of the brain. The brain is being held back in its growth, and it's partly related to these things called retained reflexes. And so I always say to parents, what are we trying to do? Ultimately, what we're trying to do is literally get your child's brain to catch up to where they should be and catch up to the other area, other networks. Emma's left side of her brain was even more delayed than the right. Her whole brain was delayed, and her head was small, very small for its age. And they looked at it like, well, it's never going to change. That's never going to change. And so we're literally trying to get it to grow at an accelerated rate. Right. A lot of people say it's impossible. When the skull and the head grow 6 centimeters in a matter of a couple of weeks from where they were, that means we're getting the brain underneath to grow at an accelerated, faster than normal rate, and try to create balance in the brain and in the networks in the brain, really, which is the root cause, because we're always trying to get to the root cause.
Yeah. It's what you're saying is really extraordinary. Let's move on. So, Cindy, you've been open about Emma's journey on social media. Yep. You have a profile set up, Emma Bum's Journey. Why was it important for you to share publicly, and what kind of response have you received from other families?
The biggest thing Emma's taught me so far is be glass half full. Look at her. She's got a complex list of what is not going well for her, but she's the happiest little child you ever going to meet. So that's how I live my life. And I want to share a positive outlook. And I want parents to go, actually, look, put the hard work in, gain the benefits. Right. There's no easy road. I remember when I first met Dr. Rob, he says, a lot of people always say to me, when is my child going to talk? When is my child going to walk? And he goes, how long is a piece of string? If I had that answer, I'd give it to you. But it all depends on the amount of work you're going to put in back home. And if you look at me, I'm 7.5 years in. And if he told me when he first met me, it could be 10 years, I'd be like, how? That's a big commitment. But I see why now. And I look at her, and she is a picture of health. We discovered last year in Dr. Melillo's office, Emma can fully read, even though traditional doctors said my child's brain disorder is so severe and her global developmental delay is so severe that she was stuck as a newborn, and that's going to be her for the rest of her life. And in actual fact, she's probably smarter than us. There's so much more to them. And this is going back to my page. I want us to stop focusing on what's wrong with them. Our kids are not broken. We're not here to fix them. We're here to help them on their journey, equip them to get them to the best of their ability and tap into your kids' gifts. These kids are amazing.
Like what she's describing, many of the kids that I work with that are non-speaking, they're brilliant. They're geniuses, literally. But that's also what makes them vulnerable. And very few people understand that. You know, all these kids, many of them have been told they're intellectually impaired, you know, basically insinuating that, you know, they're not that smart, or, you know, there's really, you know, they're not as intelligent as they could be. And it's actually couldn't be further from the truth. Just because they can't speak or because they may not be able to point or type or write, they know everything.
Right. And they hear everything.
And they hear everything.
And it's so important that the narrative around them is positive.
Yep.
Because if you're talking about them like they're a third person in the room and referring to them as the third person, right, and not addressing them as a human being in presence, they'll hear that.
Yes.
100%.
What you're saying about them. And imagine a child who can't talk back and mom or dad just refer to them as lesser than perfect, right? Imagine that. But what you've done, Cindy, is you put Emma's journey out there and you created more than awareness. You've created a ripple effect. And the statistics show that parents who connect to peer support networks online report 50% lower levels of stress and isolation compared to those who don't. So what you've done is not only helping Emma, but you've built a lifeline for others and even yourself, because you are doing a lot of work, Mama, a lot of work. God bless you. And to Dr. Melillo's point, you know, you're on a journey, and a journey that is just beginning.
It is. I feel so blessed sometimes. I go, how come God chose me? I'm just like nobody. I'm an average mom. And just to touch on, like, Emma communicates to me through dreams. And I remember once I asked her this, and she said to me, because I knew you were strong enough, Mum, and I chose you because I knew you'd stick by me and you'd believe in me. And Emma almost died when she was 5 months old. And I'll never forget rushing her to hospital as she was shutting down and I couldn't wake up and she was turning blue. And I promised her, I made a pinky sweet promise with her. She had rhinovirus, bronchiolitis, and influenza, and her immune system, she was just shutting down. And I said to her, if you come back from this, I promise you I will leave no stone unturned, and it'll be me and you. We'll do whatever it takes. And all I'm really doing is just keeping my word.
You're going to make me cry. You really are. Okay, so for parents listening who may not be familiar with the science, you literally made me cry. Could you describe some of the exercises or therapies Emma does as part of the program and how you've seen those directly connect to changes in her brain and behavior?
So when you first start with Dr. Melillo, he's big on primitive reflexes. Primitive reflex is something that newborns are born with, and as a child grows, the reflex integrates, which just goes away. And for these kids, it's not going away. So how do you expect your brain to mature and develop when those reflexes there and it's still saying, hey, actually, I'm still a newborn baby, but you too, right? So there's not going to be growth. There's not going to be development. And one of the first things Dr. Melillo said to me is, does she move? And I said, no, she doesn't move at all. And he said, so how do you expect her brain to grow if she's not moving? And I think a lot of people don't know this. In order for your brain to grow and develop and mature, the body needs to physically move. So we focus on the primitive reflexes by integrating them. And that's Palmer reflex, Babinski, ATNR, SDNR, I could list all of them. And there's certain exercises Dr. Melillo teaches us. And then we work on core strength. And a lot of people are like, so why does Emma do 100 sit-ups? I'm like, it's not about having abs of steel. It's about strengthening her cerebellum. That's where stability comes in. Feeling yourself in gravity, proprioception. And how do you expect her to walk when she can't even feel herself in gravity, right?
When she was going through therapy in New Zealand, they were doing things where there was this thing called a neurosuit, and they were literally strapping her in and trying to get her to stand. This is a little girl who couldn't sit, who had never crawled, and she couldn't even do a basic bridge on the floor. And so, you know, they were doing all this. And I said to Cindy right from the beginning, the first thing we have to do is we have to get her to build some core stability. We have to get her stable on the ground, and we have to be able to get her to sit up. That's our first goal, just to get this little girl to sit up and to be able to use her legs. And, and there was nothing wrong with her legs. It just wouldn't work. They wouldn't move. They looked like a baby's legs. And that just started with just repetition of getting her to do a simple bridge just to engage that. Yeah. And within a short period of time, Cindy was like, oh my God, everything is changing right now because of that. But meanwhile, they were trying to rush her to try to get her to stand up and try to walk when she couldn't even sit.
I remember that conversation. Your first thing you said is, why are they trying to get her upright?
Right.
Why is she upright? She needs to be on the floor. She needs to be on the floor. And he's like, you get her on the floor. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we do sit-ups, we do wheelbarrows, we do planks, we do Supermans. And the cool thing about Dr. Malilo's program is a lot of it, we make it fun, right? Yeah. We make it fun because they are kids, but also fun for the parents as well because it's hard work. Gosh, people always say to me, do I do a lot of arm workout? I'm like, no, this kid's heavy, man. Yeah. She's my workout.
Yeah.
She's
gotten a lot heavy.
She's solid.
She was like nothing when she came.
Yeah, she's solid. She's pure muscle. She's like lead. And Dr. Tai always says she has a swimmer's back, this kid. She is so strong. Yes. So we the physicality part she loves. She knows this is where I can show up. And even just being back here now, yesterday when we were in our session, one of the other assistants, when he saw Emma, Emma had him like literally dripping in sweat. I had to dry his face because his eyeballs were burning because she was putting him through his paces. And then he had to step in yesterday and he went, oh my gosh, Cindy, she is doing so much of this herself. He was like, wow, look how strong she is now. And the team make it fun and exciting. And then we moved to the brain stimulation part. Now, yes, Emma does struggle with this, not because she doesn't like it. It's tough. You're trying to wake her body up. We stimulating her neurons so she feels her body in gravity. She's upright at a vibration machine. She's got flashing glasses on. Dr. Manilo's team use the lasers, so infrared laser, and there's so much great research on infrared lasers and how great they are for the mitochondria cells using photobiomodulation. And we use a program which the kids are watching to stimulate the particular side of the brain, and I think collectively she has like 10 to 12 products on her, literally waking her body up. And on this journey, the more the kids feel their body, the more they're going to use their body.
Yeah.
Because, and we're seeing that.
It's very basic logic.
Yeah, exactly. It's not rocket science. And that's what I love about Dr. Malilo's program. It's like...
It's a clear picture. Because neuroscience tells us that repetitive, task-specific training increases synaptic strength and it drives that long-term
100%.
plasticity. So you've translated that into real-life gains for Emma.
Yeah.
It's the science is the science, and it's inspiring to see the science and story align so closely, and that's because of course, the incredible Dr. Robert Melillo. Cindy, this has been an incredible interview. Dr. Melillo, I've learned so much. You are inspiring. Emma is inspiring, and many families don't realize that issues like anxiety and ADHD or developmental delays not often, they trace back to imbalances between the brain's hemispheres, like Dr. Melillo has always been saying. So understanding this science, without a doubt, is helping you better support Emma's day-to-day.
100%. And it just makes I look at her like I've got two other children. She's exactly the same. I remember the first time meeting Dr. Melillo when we came to New York. He looked at me and I'll never forget. He said, with a child with so many complex things against her, you've raised her in such a positive, but she's so confident. Right? And I said, yeah, because we focus on what's right with her. And she owns that. So she only knows she's amazing. She only knows she's kick-ass. She only knows I show up for myself and I'm going to prove these doctors wrong. And I got this. I got me. And that's how she is. She walks into a room and she owns it. And why not?
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, we are at the end of our date, my friends. What an extraordinary and deeply educational conversation. Cindy, thank you for sharing
Emma's having me.
Inspiring journey and giving hope to so many parents. And of course, Dr. Melillo, thank you for your groundbreaking work in showing us that the brain's blueprint is not fixed, it can be rewritten.
Yep.
And then that's the biggest takeaway for me. So thank you so much. And for those of you listening, you can follow Emma's story directly on the gram at Emma Bum's Journey. You can connect with Cindy personally on her profile page on the gram at Blocky78. And to learn more about Dr. Robert Melillo and his work, you can head directly to his website at drrobertmelillo.com. This has been our Brain Blueprint segment in the Expert on the Microphone series right here on A Moment of Zen. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this on 710 WOR, the voice of New York iHeartRadio.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Your Home TV with Kathy Ireland and their channel partners. Head to yourhometv.com for free, family-friendly programming, streaming 24/7.
Are you looking to build a new home? Think about building a barn-dominium. There's just something about getting away from it all. Country living, fresh air, and outdoor entertainment. Watch luxury barn-dominium tours on Your Home TV and let Stacy Lynn, the barn-dominium lady, take you on a journey through her barn-dominium designs.
Tune in to A Moment of Zen, Saturday nights from 9 to 10 p.m. on 710 WOR, the voice of New York.
That's a wrap, beautiful tri-state area. You've been listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sands. We'll be back next week. Also remember that we're live on Traverse TV Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern, YouTube Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern, and all episodes of A Moment of Zen are available directly on Your Home TV streaming platform that's family-friendly worldwide programming. You could head directly to mox.yourhometv.com. Thank you for listening to A Moment of Zen. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host. Thanks again to all of our sponsors that continue to make this show possible. And remember that happiness is the only thing that multiplies when you share it. We'll be back next week.